Johnny from Johnny's Car Care and Reviews. I've got Dwayne, but with me here from Driven Wild Outdoors. I really do hope, and I ask that you check his channel out, subscribe. He's a well of knowledge, and he's here to really come and bless our show with some of this knowledge that he's got in regards to the Ford Broncos. Family currently has two, right? You
Yes,
didn't
yeah.
buy a third behind my back and forgot to call me and let me know?
No, 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 not yet, not yet. We have a 21 Badlands and a 22 Badlands. Yeah.
Fantastic. And here on the channel, we've had a 2021 Ford Broncos, and we're also now on to our third Bronco. So one Bronco for the family. We used to have one each, and we got a wild track because it's actually just it took us a while to figure out the right equipment. I was too cheap on my first Bronco, didn't have heated seats, so one of the two weren't happy. So we figured out here, but we're here tonight to talk to you about all the changes that have been made to the Ford Bronco. We're here to talk to you also about pricing on the 2024 Bronco versus pricing on the 2023. And, maybe you should get a used Bronco instead. Maybe that's the best buy, folks. Then we're going to be talking about whether you should buy right now or later. And we're going to be talking about the best model to get. Of course, there's variables behind that. Depends who you are, what you can afford, but we'll talk about that. Sometimes it's worth spending a little bit more, and sometimes it makes sense, even if you have the budget, to spend less. If you have the budget, for example, for a Ford F-150 Raptor, I don't think it's a bad idea at all to save tens of thousands of dollars and get an F-150 Tremor. And I think Dwayne and I both concluded that if you're looking at a Ranger, a Tremor is a fantastic option, or maybe upping if you're looking at an XL, paying the little bit extra to get an XLT with a 2.7 liter, we think is a very smart move. So you can catch our episode on the Ford Ranger. Glad you're here for the Ford Bronco talk. Now, Dwayne, tell us a little bit about your Broncos before we get to talking about all these Broncos piling up on lots and what that means for price and whether that means you should buy now or later. How do you feel about your Broncos? What's your experience been like?
Well, so it all started when, Ford announced it was coming back. They had a nice show on the internet and I think a couple TV channels. And it was it July 13th, 2020. So I reserved two. And the funny thing was, my wife was saying, we don't know if we're going to like it. You're reserving two. And so January rolls around to 21. You could actually turn that reservation to an order. So we ordered both Badlands. That's when I looked at the trim, what was available is what I wanted. And they both were hard tops. And so as we went throughout the year, in April, I got to experience a ride along with professional drivers in the new pre-production Broncos. And I called my wife, and this was at Townsend, Tennessee. And I called my wife and said, "You're going to love it. We went airborne." She said, "What?" It's like, well, when you catch an air on the trail moving, it'll leave the ground. I mean, it's just the way it is. And I told her I said, you're not going to believe it, but this vehicle is awesome. Not only does it look cool, but it rode really well on the road and it was really capable off road. And so as the year goes on, they had the top issue, the manufacturing issue with the hard top. I converted my 21 Badlands to a soft top. A week later, got a build date, and in September of 21, received the Area 51 21 Badlands. And I love it. It's been a great vehicle. It's probably I've had the most fun with it out of any vehicle ever, including a Mustang. Um, but I really do like it, and now it's to the age and the mileage that I feel comfortable modifying it, bolting a bunch of stuff on, and changing its look.
I look forward to seeing that on your channel, and I hope that the community here will be catching that on your channel because here we do really like modified Broncos. We also like resale value, and that's why our first two, we didn't do a ton. We weren't doing major modifications. We're just kind of adding accessories that we can take out once we sell it, take it out and put it into the next one. Except for when we paid $500 or $600 for some 70s styled striping that Maddie gave me such a hard time with that she eventually took them off. And you can catch that over on our Facebook, Johnny's Car Care and Reviews, or our Instagram at Johnny's Car Care and Reviews. But we've had a great experience with, we can really relate to your experience. We took our Badlands Bronco off-roading. Really love how the Badlands Bronco has that Sasquatch suspension, even if you don't take the Sasquatch package. So that's sort of a great off-road model right there with the stabilizer bar disconnect. And we were in a farm field and we were just catching air. And often you're in the air because the weight, even if on the outside it looks like your tires are still, well, even if your tires are still making some contact, if the weight of the vehicle is in the air, there's that moment of being airborne, which
Right.
is a pretty great feeling. But no, we really got the wheels completely off the ground, and we were worried. But when we landed, we're like, okay, what's going to happen? Are the air, are we going to have a ram situation here where the airbags,
Airbags go off.
is this a TRX
Yeah.
ram where the airbags will go off, even though, and that is one heck of an expensive machine. But no, we hit down and we thought, I was worried, Marie. I was like, well, I was thinking when we're in there, I'm like, oh God, I hope her seatbelt will lock so she doesn't eat dash. And then I was also thinking when we landed, I was like, oh my goodness, I hope the airbags don't go, but we never bottomed out. The suspension, especially when we're talking about that Sasquatch suspension, really is made. I'm not telling people to go get 10 feet into the air with it or
No,
anything,
don't do
but if you
that.
get a little bit of air, you're not gonna, a little bit of wheels no longer making contact or just the body of the entire weight being airborne. You're not going to ruin the vehicle unless you land at the wrong angle, of course.
Yep.
But no, wonderful, wonderful experience. We've gone to the Bronco off rodeo in New Hampshire twice. Hope to get back there this summer. Going to looking into pricing because, of course, you get to go one person for free essentially when you buy one. We're not sure. We love too much our current wild track, even if we're locked in at
Get it.
6.99% interest and current interest is at 0.99. We'll tell you why in this video, why interest rates are so low. But first, let's talk about changes made. So changes, Ford's been working, well, Webasto has been working hard to improve the hardtop, but we're still hearing customers less, definitely less, but in the community. We haven't had customers with hardtop issues other than earlier on, but in the community, there's people saying they have a 2023 and have hardtop issues. I'm hoping for 2024, we see no issues. I know my 23 Wild Track, the soft top, has been very good to us. It's a little quieter, it's a little heavier though, but it is quieter. So that's one of the
Well,
big improvements that have been made.
yeah, and I think Johnny, one of the biggest things is I'm looking. Sorry, I'm actually on Ford's website right now trying to get some updates on something. The Big Ben, 4-door Big Ben starts at right
Yeah.
around 40,000 US, 40,000, and we go all the way up to the Bronco Raptor starting at 90,000. And Peugeot had he had a very good comment earlier. He said, "Well, inflation's really taking its toll." I remember when the Raptor came out, the starting price was 76,000 and some change,
Mm.
and now it's 90,000. Now, of course, they've added some stuff and got rid of stuff, but most of that, I think, is inflation, right? Um,
Yeah.
and it's more expensive for them to put vehicles together now. So
Inflation and demand. The demand's been
sure,
wild
yeah,
for
and
the,
you're going to spread the
price.
profit or make profit on it. Yeah,
Yeah, no, at the end of the day, you got to pay for your electric business that's being forced on all automobile manufacturers. But yeah, Raptor right here, if people want to pick that up on the screen, $90,035. Huge price increase from where we originally were. Then we go over to the Heritage Limited Edition, which is going to be ending. This is the last year. If you're into the Heritage Limited, it's your last year to get one. You're at 69,685. If you go over to the Wild Track, you're at 60,225. And you can get the Wild Track two-door. You've got the Everglades, which is only going to come four-door. You do, yeah, I remember back when two-door was an option that saved you a lot of money. It was Canadian $5,000 or $6,000. Now you look at the Wild Track here at 60,225. We go four-door, it's at 60,765. So not next to no difference. It's $500. So it shows that's also a reflection of what, Ford wanting to have more build simplicity. It's all about cost. They want to have build simplicity. They want people to want the four-door because previously I think there was more demand for the two-door based on pricing. It's just price-wise, people said, you know what, like, and Peugeot mentioned he got his two-door 2.7 liter OBX for, I think he said 40 some thousand dollars. And now, like you mentioned, you can't get a four-door, a two-door Outer Banks. It's four-door only. And now there's no longer any base models, so that's a major change. However, the models have gotten, you could say, in my opinion, better, but not everyone's going to agree with me there. You look at the Big Ben starting at 39,630 for a two-door, next to no price difference. If we go up to a four-door, 40,370. But the Big Ben now is finally something that I actually find is an attractive option because it comes standard with a 12-inch touchscreen, comes standard with the rubberized, washed out floors, and it comes standard like they all do, essentially, except some come standard with leather, like the Wild Track, but they all have as a minimum the marine grade vinyl, which originally I was thinking black diamond, really liked it. I was actually originally thinking base, but then I kind of kept talking myself into higher and higher models and ended up taking a Badlands with no options, no keyless entry, which is pretty rough in Canada's cold winters, no heated seats, because I wanted the marine grade vinyl and I also wanted the off-road capability, which the Badlands was a ton of fun, climbing things, going down steep slopes, doing wild donuts, and taking, jumps and driving across at high speeds, really high speeds, some bumpy back roads that would have taken some vehicles right off the road into the ditch. Because some vehicles, if you're in a corner and you start to eat bumps, it's gone. It's sliding right out. And this thing, in corners, when it's going through bumps at a pretty high speed, it holds itself together and it keeps you on track where you want to go.
Well, Johnny, I'm trying to build this here, and I'm going through it. Sorry, I'm looking off camera here, but I'm
No
just trying to
worries.
do this really quick. And I know I'm going to forget something, but let's see here. It looks like so I paid 59,000 for my like 59 for my Badlands, and Becky was close to 60 because she had the hardtop. If I build this thing out, and if I haven't missed anything at all, uh, total MSRP 66,845, and I probably missed a couple things. So let's just say 67,000. That's a huge difference just in a what 3 years.
Yeah,
Um,
Deal Mine for a 2024 in the chat here is making a great point. He says his base in 2021 was 28,500, and now the Big Ben, which is now the base, it's the standard, the
yep.
entry level, you could say. It starts at 39,700. It's $11,200 difference. Now you are getting marine grade vinyl for that. You are getting the rubberized washout floors. You are getting a 12-inch screen, which before you had to kind of get up into an Outer Banks to be able to get that high package. So there's added on options, but for someone that just wants it bare bones and go off-roading, this is some pretty harsh and hard to digest. It's a pill that's hard to swallow, I think is the expression I'm looking for.
Yeah, and income hasn't necessarily followed, so you're at a net loss. Also, keep in mind that the Heritage for it last year, right? And you think about Heritage Limited, that's in the name. It's going to be limited a few years, but you can get the Peak Blue now in the Heritage Limited, and you can also do the white Oxford white painted top, and that is going to be, I think, a very interesting color with that white top, very bright versus
Yeah,
Area 51 or Zur or even Velocity.
and I'm glad the center of the wheels are no longer white. You've got the white rim. I think that's really
Yeah,
cool, but having the black center, I think before is just too much white for my
right.
palette. Speaking
Yep.
of palettes, Ford will have more and more colors that are at charge, like an extra charge. That's going to irritate some people. But
Mhm.
we've got some good news because I remember back when this first got, publicized, shared with the public, they showed painted tops and everyone wanted a painted top. A lot of orders at first had the painted top and then Ford, ended up Webasto. They couldn't get the painted tops done. So I am really happy to share here with the community that when we go with the Bronco build and price, I believe even on a Big Ben, I think even on a Big Ben, I did it, of course, checking because right now I'm at 6.99% interest. Some people have bought their Bronco at 8.99 interest, and that's because supply was here and demand was off camera. It was up here, but supply was down here. Now that supply is here and demand is here, might not be quite there in your area yet, but it's going to happen. That's why my region now that we have Broncos that have piled up on dealership lots, it's funny, back in April, I told people I got accused by one person saying I'm not an advocate for buyers because I give horrible advice by telling people, always buy. And I was like, that's not true. I
No.
don't always tell people to buy. I tell people to buy when it's the right time. So in 2021, when vehicles had not raised by inflation, and 2022, when almost all of YouTube throughout 2021 and 22, all the big shots were saying, don't buy now, don't accept, this $1,500 increase in price on an F-150 and 1% extra interest. For the longest time, the Ford F-150 stayed at 0%, and they went from $5,000 rebate to zero rebate. That was over about a year and a half. The whole time I was saying, folks, doesn't matter if the MSRP went up by 1,500. We still have 5,000 off and 0%. Buy now because one day inflation is going to catch up in this price, and they're going to be forced. Right now, they're hoping inflation will calm down, but that's probably not going to happen. And the
Hmm.
prices are going to be forced to skyrocket. Buy right now. That's why I was saying that in April.
Yeah.
I wasn't saying buy a Bronco right now. I was saying, well, prices should come down. And actually, I said prices will come down because they're getting piled up in my region. As soon as they pile up in your region, you're going to see a better deal. And it's happened. You either can have the old interest rate from the last few months of 699 and a $4,000 rebate on a 2024, or you can go down the 0.99 interest, basically 1% interest on 5 years. So we're looking at our Bronco thinking, hey, do we sell it for about what we owe and, get back into go from a 72-month loan that we've paid for almost a year and jump in for a 5 year at 0.99, save a ton of interest? Or do we just take some cash and put it on the Bronco to get through it out? And, we put a bit of money into it with a rust proofing, a really expensive rust proofing, plastic protection. We've got all these little knickknacks all around it that we just Bronco, it's one of those vehicles that you kind of get emotional for. So
Yeah.
it'd be hard to see it go.
Well, yeah,
The
we
car,
talked about it for years here. We waited. We saw the Ford had the promo video we talked about, and that inspired a lot of people. And at that time in the world's history, how many people wanted to get outside and do something, right? Everybody's cooped up at home. So it
that's right.
became the escape from reality, that cool looking vehicle, alternative to Jeep. Uh, I mean, the list keeps going. And so, yes, the emotional attachment. And to get back to your videos about buying and stuff, you have had several videos where you said now's not the best time, or, if you have to, here's how to do it. But you've had several videos advocating on, there might be a better time. So yeah, I'll give you that. Johnny,
Thank
let's
you.
talk about the no charge colors, right? So for
Yeah.
now, you have the no charge colors, which this probably better than anyone: Oxford white, shadow black, iconic silver, metallic, and carbonized gray. Every other
Yep.
color is going to be a 295 upcharge if you pick, which in the scheme of things is it's not a lot of money to get the color you want, if as long as what you want is in the color palette. But it kind of says, well, that's a way of having taking some of the impact off the MSRP for any color, right? Here's the basic colors.
Yep.
Maybe that's what, I don't know. I guess it's cheaper for them to paint in those colors, or is it just they're trying to create a sort of a standard? I don't.
That's I think it could, you touch on a really good point. I think it could be either one of them. I definitely know that at factory, the more of one thing that you make, the lower cost you
Yeah,
have. So I definitely know that Ford, they were talking about this 4 years ago, that their plan was to really, instead of the F-150 had so many more options that you could have. And I mean, so many more, not just tens of thousands, but hundreds of thousands of more options. And I mean, a truck that has at least one variable different with another truck,
right.
hundreds of thousands of more variables, potential creations than what you'd have from other truck companies. And there's a cost to that. Look at Toyota. Toyota's like, how do you want your, Corolla? Or how do you want your Camry? You can pick whatever it is, 6 to 8 colors, but each model is it's a cookie cutter. It's here's your, LE, it comes with this, pick your color. Here's your next trim, it comes with this, pick your color. You're not playing around with options. And the Bronco has so many options. Which front bumper do you want? Do you want big tires and a huge, an incredible off-road suspension? All within the Big Bend. There's so many variations of just the Big Bend that most people get dizzy just thinking about, first of all, big question, which model do you get? And then within the model, there's so many options. Definitely
Well,
having low charges. Yeah, I think it's a smart way to avoid increasing more the MSRP and just having it. And we're not talking about a Porsche 911 here. You look at a Porsche 911,
yeah,
they've got about four or six standard colors, but then the next jump up is $3,000. And then the jump up after that, it's $7,000 above, $6,000 or $7,000 Canadian above your regular MSRP for another palette color. And they do make sure that the best colors are $6,000 to $7,000.
yeah. And look at this, the Ford Performance. It was Code Orange was Ford Performance before color, but Shelter Green is reserved. It seems for Ford Performance goes on the Ranger Raptor and the Bronco Raptor, so you can't
Yeah.
get it. I don't know if do you ever see Shelter Green making it into the regular, the other 8 trims as far as a Bronco, or well, with the other 7 because the Heritage is this is it.
If it's popular, if it's desired, and if later on they can charge $500 to $800 for it as an option, the way they do for some of them, they're not all 295. Some of them are more. Then
Okay.
I think they will. We have a chance, but I wouldn't expect it at all for 2025. I am interested in this change right here. If you take the Sasquatch package, so the wheel package isn't $8,460. It's going Sasquatch, meaning you're changing your whole suspension setup.
Mhm.
It's higher, it's beefier, not just the shocks, but you can actually have the Everglades wheels that a lot of people love. I know
Yeah.
Ali Dubois, I believe, hunted down these wheels to put them on as like her aftermarket wheel package. And we've got one sitting in the showroom, and I do think it is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, they're sort of throwback wheels. Yeah, they do offer the Sasquatch with the non-beadlock capable wheels, whereas before it was only the beadlock capable ones, like I have. So yeah, that's a good option. Also, I mean, and there's a couple things. If you're going to put a winch on your Bronco and you're going or even on the modular bumper and or change the front bumper, you might want to consider not going Lux, because Lux is going to prevent some issues for you in the future with putting a winch on. There are some workarounds, but if you go to Ford's website and you look at the Warren 10,000 pound winch, it says in there, and some verbiage, and I might not have it exactly right, so check it for yourself, but it says something that not compatible with Lux, and because you have the adaptive cruise control in the
Yeah.
front, and it affects some of that. So if you know right off the bat you're going winch and crazy bumpers, and this, might want to look at a high package versus Lux. So there's a way to save some money and not get something that you necessarily don't have to have, but can also save you in the future with being able to modify your Bronco more.
That's a great point. And I also am not against the idea of getting, I really like the Warren winch, but I don't think there's anything wrong with getting a quality aftermarket winch. I'd just say if you can avoid getting one that's made in China, not picking on things made in China. I'm just realistic. I'd much
Yeah,
rather
right.
something made in Germany or made in the United States, ideally. But with your winch, don't go down the $300 winch route
Right.
and get a 5,000 pound winch saying, well, my vehicle's about 5,000 pounds, I'll be fine. No, you need to double the weight. So if your vehicle's roughly 6,000 pounds, get at least get a 10,000 pound or 12,000 pound winch and get an American made winch. Don't go out and buy yourself one that's made in China. And there are some interesting advantages of getting one that's not steel
Right.
because, well, steel when it snaps, yeah, it snaps.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, you can get, yeah. And also the other thing is, and someone mentioned, yeah, I understand that you can put a winch with Lux on there. It just reduces the options of bumpers and winches to do it. I know it's a workaround. That's what I was saying. There's a workaround, but it reduces the options out there. But yeah, you're right. Going with the non-metallic strap, and also snatch blocks. Understanding how to use snatch blocks and really understanding the winching process takes that tremendous load off, because there's also not just the weight of your vehicle, but are you stuck in mud, and if so, how deep? And all that changes the weight on I remember at Off Rodeo, they did a great job explaining that to us and making me think of things that I didn't think of.
Yeah, it's if you think about it, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're stuck and you can get the vehicle out by just having two men push behind the vehicle because you really only needed, 400 or 500 pounds of assistance. Well, when you need to winch, it can be like that. At times you can need 500, 1,000, 1,500, or 5,000, or even 10,000 pounds of assistance because you're really stuck or you're hung up on something. And of course, if there's a difference between being hung up on something and needing to be pulled off where there's a lot of friction, whereas compared to, your wheels actually being able to turn and having the assistance of the power of the vehicle. And you never know, your vehicle, you might be in a situation where you're in water and you don't want to take the risk of turning the vehicle back on because you went in water, you sunk, you've got the water up near the air box. You don't want to turn that on and start sucking in water into the engine. You're going to
Yeah.
want to leave it off and you're going to have to really rely 100% on your winch. Now, I found the hard top. I thought we could have a Big Ben with a painted black hard top, but right here we've got it on the Badlands. I can confirm we can get it on the Wild Track. And I really think that the hardtop painted black. Marie has never found the carbonized. It's never quite been for her because she found it was weird. It's like three colors. The
Right.
her design side of things is she doesn't want to see three colors on a vehicle. She,
Right.
black wheels, black fenders. She loves all that. Black soft top. It all fits. Then you throw
Wild
in
track
gray.
grills. Yeah.
Yeah. So it looks great when you can throw on a black top, but then of course you still have the gray front grille on the Badlands, which Marie is a huge fan of the Wild Track because it has that high gloss
Yep.
black grill. So it's just two colors consistent throughout. But I think anyone that's looking at ordering up a Bronco now, get the painted hardtop is just fantastic. So many people wanted that at first, and I think that's desirable right there.
Well, here's an option if you want to go with the dual tops. So you get the hard top, the shadow black painted hard top, plus the black soft top. 3145 upcharge if you're on I think this is a Badlands. Here's key though, it's only available on Black Diamond, Outer Banks, Badlands, and Wild Track series. So if you want the dual tops, which look, if I had the option of going back and waiting 2 more months to get the dual tops, I would have probably waited. But I was just so excited to get the Bronco early. I was like, now I love the soft top. However, what I don't like is the inability to do roof camping, right? Roof
Yeah.
racks, things like that. I know they make any number of things that kind of go over, but it looks a little too Mad Max for me. I don't want that cage over the soft top that you have to raise up to lower the top and then lower the cage again. I just want dual tops. And so one of our modifications this year is putting on an aftermarket top,
Oh, very cool, very cool.
hard
And
top.
here, anyone in a northern climate can appreciate the whole idea of,
Yep.
saying, and it's also nice to switch up your vehicle. When we've got a regular Sasquatch wheel package for our wild track, so the silver lip for the winter. Then when we go to our all black wheels in the summer, it's like, oh, it's the excitement of we've got to change.
Yeah.
I The painted top in Canada, I think, or in northern United States makes a lot of sense. You put your hard top for the winter,
Right.
but the hard top isn't ideal for getting some sun. So when it comes, come month of June, you put your soft top on. That way, when you want to drive to work, you don't have to look at your watch and say, "Do I have time to take my tops off?" And of course, the second row, if you take it off and leave it at home, you have to hope it doesn't rain. And here we get rain out of nowhere. So it's
Yeah.
nice to just have that soft top, easy on, easy off action going down. I do also really like how the new Badlands, I've got a 2024 on the lot, and I can attest to this. They're very cool. The dash it has like the leather look to it, and it's got the orange stitching on the dash. It's the first Bronco that I see with a dash that looks great because I
Wow.
think we can all agree that the dash on the Bronco looks on all the Broncos so far looks pretty plasticky
Yeah.
and kind of average, to be honest. But this, whether it's real leather or fake leather dash with the stitching on the Badlands Bronco 2024 that we have is really solid. It looks amazing.
Well, and I think that goes for the manufacturer's way of constantly improving, like taking what gets the most complaints. Obviously, the plastic scratching up inside in general. So taking that
Yes.
and changing it, modifying, but also changing it for the new years. There's a reason you want, the 24 or eventually 25, 26, whatever. Uh, so part of it, I believe, is to, update, freshen up the brand. The other is to solve legitimate issues that people have been complaining about.
Now we've got a lot of Broncos to talk about more, to finish up talking about price, buy now or buy later. I'd
Right.
say last month we were talking, I was kind of mentioning to people like, well, if you're going to buy now, try to have a good amount of cash to put down. But once Broncos pile up, and I said in my region they have piled up, so I am expecting help from Ford. Dealerships are, I said, dealerships are complaining to Ford saying, look, we've got 500,000 or 800,000 or $1 million worth of Broncos on the lot, and we're paying 7% interest on them. We need help to move metal. And they have piled up. Right now, we must have 12 to 14 Broncos. We've got one on the inside, three right here, about seven up front. So we've got around 12 Broncos, one or two out back, and we want help. And we've been asking for help. And Ford has done it on a 2024 Ford Bronco. Ford needed to help the dealers out to move some metal. If it hasn't happened in your region yet, it will as soon as they pile up. We went from 6.99% interest to 0.99% interest on a 2024 model. Impressive. It's the new model. They're just starting to show up the 2024s. And the deal is a little bit better on the 2023s. And if you don't take the low interest deal, I think you save 1% interest on the 2023s. But if you don't take the deal and you go with what has been pretty much standard interest rate across all makes and manufacturers, 6 months ago, the average rate was in the 9 percentile range. Now I'm going to assume they're in the 8 percentile range. But at Ford, it's been pretty standard to see 6.99 to 8.49% interest on Broncos. But if you take the 6.99, you get $4,000 off the 2024 in my region. So if you're being offered really high interest and that doesn't, and with no rebate in your region, I'd say hold off just a little bit longer. Once they pile up, or look in a different region. Maybe look at buying a Bronco from a different state where in that state they have piled up and Ford has given potentially a special rebate to that state to help that state move its Broncos.
Yeah, Johnny, I think that new dash might be a very good video for you to do because I'm looking right now, and I know I keep looking off camera here, but I'm looking over at my computer. At least in the pictures that they show, if you go to the Badlands, for example, and look at the interior picture, it looks like they're
Standard.
traditional gray with no stitching.
Yeah. Yeah,
So that's
I will.
interesting. Yeah,
Thank
because
you. And
I did
it's
not
black.
know. I haven't heard about it or seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's we've got a 2024 Badlands. I believe it's non-Sasquatch, but I'll do a little video on it. And it's got what looks like a black leather dash with orange stitching, and I'm loving it. And of course, my father there from being a big 1960s and 1970s muscle car guy and owner. I remember being a little kid, and he'd go out and just a regular day, it'd be pretty normal for him to do, a burnout. And he loved his muscle cars, but that means, he likes the old school, leather dashes and whatnot. And he's always had a problem with my Broncos interior, but when he saw the Bronco Badlands with the leather interior, he's like, wow, that's really, really sharp. He liked that quite a bit.
All right. So I don't know if the thinking was just material they use, cost, price points, things like that. But I know this when the top's down and we're out doing whatever and we get dusty and dirty, it makes it really easy to clean up with a damp rag just to wipe it down. And now Becky she doesn't like the fact that she keeps her saddle, all of her horse riding stuff in the back of her Bronco, and the side panels get scratched up very easily. So she doesn't like that. But in my Bronco, I like the ease of cleaning the dust off. Which I mean, I know you can do it with leather, but I'm just wondering if you get them dirty enough, the stitching's going to become something to. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
the first world
that's
stuff.
true.
But I mean,
Stitching will stain, plastic will
yeah,
not.
yeah. So I'm okay with it. However, the scratching part of it, when you grab the door handle, you can scratch that area behind the door handle pretty easily. I don't know if you've seen that. So um, there's an accessory for someone to make something that sticks in that area on the plastic. But I like it just because it feels rugged, and I don't feel like I'm going to cut something if I get in there with a, whatever. Of course, the marine grade vinyl seats, you don't want to get something in your pocket. But I mean, I don't know where I was going with that, other than it just feels rugged, like the Bronco seems to be. So
Yeah, having a plastic, the interior, I agree with you. It feels rugged. It feels more utilitarian, more like something that you go across a
yeah,
desert with. And having a leather dash definitely does feel more upscale and maybe a little less utilitarian. So I'll get a video in on that.
yeah,
I'm definitely loving the painted black top, but we've been huge fans of, in the winter. A lot of people think the soft tops are horrible in the winter. They've been fantastic to us on all
sure,
three in the winter. The new one has been the best of all for, cutting out the sound, but it's a Bronco. So there's still sound
right.
in, we're not driving a Lincoln Nautilus here. So we're
Mhm.
definitely hearing the wind noise. But hey, the doors are light enough. So I wouldn't want the doors to be, you know, have much better sound deadening, but end up being 30 pounds each heavier and just be too much to handle. And I wouldn't want the soft top or hard top to be any heavier than it is. Because yeah, the midsection on the hard top, two guys, no problem. By
Right.
myself, I'm worrying about hurting my back. It's very doable, but with the
Yeah.
different angles and whatnot, I might get, hurt myself doing it. So I don't want a Bronco that is less practical just to have
Get a
less
little
wind
flat.
noise in the vehicle. It has a radio, and that radio has been improved. And
Yep.
we do have, if you get a soft top, you do get the prep package in case later on, as of I think it was 22 or halfway through 22. Anyways, all the 23s you'll be looking at would have it. And would I buy a used Bronco right now? No, because the resale value on these is high and the
Yeah.
interest rate is high. Now, if
Hi.
I could pay the whole thing cash, yeah, used Bronco could very much make sense if I can pay all of it cash, but not at the used interest rates when I can get a new one. And yes,
And it
pricing
doesn't
is
matter. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
pricing is region specific. So very to some of the people in the community, there's a good chance your area doesn't have 0.99% financing on a Bronco, but it's in our area and it happened as soon as they started, once we could officially say that they've piled up. As they were piling up, no. But once they were piled up, we got the 0.99 interest. And when you can have 1% interest versus use interest, the Broncos hold their value so well that it's not great if you're shopping used, but it is great if you own a Bronco and you're looking to sell.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say is that also people with tier one credit, it's still, if you're not dealing with the lower interest rate to push product, right? That's because of necessity. But if you're not in that position, you have little leverage. Even tier one credit's not getting you a low interest rate in
That's right.
most parts of the country. In the comments, there's talking about the cluster, the digital cluster. Yeah, I agree. In 25, we should be all digital in the cluster in this, not part analog, part digital screen. I mean, it should be like the Ranger Raptor. I think that would really give it a different look, at least operational. So, I mean, I'm okay with mine, but I think it's time for that. After having the Dark Horse with that display in there, it kind of wrecks it for everything else you drive because that's so clean. It was like watching the best TV I've ever seen in my life. And they've done a remarkable job with not allowing glare. I was kind of worried
Yeah.
about when the sun came in a certain way if it was going. I didn't have any glare whatsoever. So I do know that the digital cluster would be a major upgrade to the interior of the Bronco. Yep.
Now we've talked price, Dwayne. What would be for you? What makes the most sense when it comes to the best Bronco to buy?
Mm.
Value, you get two choices here: value and a sensible dream version, like someone that wants it. If the end goal is to have value, which one would you pick? And if the end goal is to have a lot of wow factor at the best price possible, what would be your two Broncos that you pick?
Okay, so if I'm not heavy in Broncos, I just like the way they look. I like the idea of them, and I'm not going to do any major off-roading. I would start probably with the Big Ben and modifying it to get everything that I can get on a Big Ben that meets my requirements, right? Because if you don't want trail turn assist, or you have it, but you don't want, say, stay bar disconnect,
Yeah.
right? Or you're not looking at Lux or whatever. Then the Big Ben might be something to start with and build on. Now, if I'm going for medium of the road, I don't want to change a bunch of stuff that comes on it, but I don't do a lot of off roading. Maybe once in a while, go to the beach or the dirty trail. I'm at Outer Banks. But if there's any part of you that's aggressive or thinks you could off road often, and different types of terrain, whether it be sand or rock or off road, I am always leaning toward the Badlands. I think the Badlands is a huge value because of the stay bar disconnect. But if you like
Mm,
everything a
absolutely.
Badlands has, and you're not worried about stay bar disconnect, then you go with the Wild Track and get that little bit better up interior feel, right, with the carpet and things like that. Um, Now, if you just want to spend a bunch of money and to have the least amount of limitations as possible, you go with the Raptor.
Yeah.
So I know I kind of cheated and added two more in there, but I would say value wise, Big Ben, option it out to meet my comfort. Medium of the road would be the I think for most people would be the Outer Banks.
And I would say that the Big Ben can be a great choice if you're looking at leasing your Bronco because it has the best residual. So on a 3-year lease, it's a 70% residual, meaning the difference is what you pay. So when residual is at 70%, it means you pay 30%. So over 3 years, you pay 30% of your Bronco. Now, if we compare that to, let's say, a Ford Mach-E, the Mustang Mach-E, on 4 years, the residual in my area, I believe, is 33%, meaning you pay 67% of the vehicle during your 4-year lease. So the
Wow.
Big Ben is a great option to lease. I'd say a one great sensible option is lease a Big Ben. And if after 3 or 4 years, you're starting to get a little tired of it, you're not sure if you should buy it back or not, but you really don't want to get a new vehicle because let's say the market prices have exploded and it's pushed you out of the new market. Well, then what's great is you with Ford, you can buy back your lease. And now that your 3-year warranty is up, I'd say now is a great time. That will be a great time in 3 years when your lease is done being paid. Finance what's left, you have the buy option, and then start modifying it. Because if you modify right out the bat and something breaks on the vehicle, let's say you've got an engine tune and you have an engine problem,
Hmm.
you're going to have trouble, even if maybe the tune has nothing to do with the engine problem. You weren't supposed to put on a tune. Usually, generally a tune will ruin your warranty on the engine. So I'd say test it out, lease it, test it out for 3, 4 years. And then when the warranty is done, if you end up buying it, great time to modify it. So I agree. We're also looking right now for Marie. We're kind of in between. Do I just buy myself a second vehicle and take an F-150 Tremor because I like to change and resale on it is going to be excellent in 2 years. It's also if you have an X plan or an employee, so either a partner plan or an employee plan or a dealer plan on any Ford product, the biggest rebate is on the Tremor. It's incredible. So I'd be in a great position to change it in a year. Do we go down that road? Or do we get Marie, the sensible choice, an Escape plug-in, which she loves the new styling, wasn't a fan of the 22, loves the new 23, 24 styling, go to work when she gets back to work, all electric? Or do we kind of go with what we both really our hearts want to do, and that's get her, we saw it in the photos. I had blue Badlands in the background. It's a 23. So I'm like, hun, we'd get a 12-inch touchscreen if you just pick a 24. But basically a Big Ben 2024, have us lease it. And if she still has it and doesn't want to give it up in 3 years, buy it out and then start modifying it. That is definitely one of our options. But if we were to if we're at zero Broncos and we were getting a Bronco, well, I think we'd want the most versatility, the most wow factor, and the best price. Well, now with the leather dash on the 24 Badlands, we'd probably get a Badlands. I definitely consider getting the 2.3-liter manual for myself. But if Marie's going to need to drive the vehicle once in a while, which even if she doesn't need to, she'll want to, kind of pushes us out of the manual market, which I think is it's a nice price at 51,385 for a machine that has so much capability and look. And we'd probably go now that we've got Layla, so we can forget at the two door. We
Yeah.
both would have liked that, but it'd be a four door, probably a four door Badlands, and because she needs to have automatic. I think it'd be great if Ford could have a manual 2.7 liter, but we'd end up with a 2.7 liter automatic. Well worth the money. It's an incredible engine. I don't think we definitely would not go up to a Bronco Raptor. We kind of felt like getting a Wild Track was our baby Raptor.
Yeah.
And we're thrilled with the Wild Track. And if ever there came a day where like 35-inch tires just isn't enough, we want to spend more money on fuel. So let's, lift it up another 2 inches. Then
Yeah.
we could throw on 37s. And it's got Fox suspension. And that's what I love about Wild Track. The Wild Track has the Fox suspension, and it has been so incredibly comfortable. A little more body roll, but it's so good over the bumps. And our roads are just crap here. And when I go back road driving up in the mountains, the roads are really bad, but you just don't feel it on the Wild Track. Well worth the extra money for that Haas 3.0 suspension.
I was going to say that's a huge value add. Before a couple years ago, when you asked me why should you go Wild Track, I really couldn't give you a good reason over a
Yeah,
Badland.
same.
But now there is a huge reason to go that route. And of course, the Wild Track, when you're looking at the pricing, say, well, the pricing's a little bit more. What's standard 2.7 anyway? So it's not like you could get a Badlands with a 2.3 and all the fixing, so to speak. Now at a Wild Track, you're going to have the Hoss, you're going to have 2.7. Completely carves it out and makes it a very viable trim over the Badlands. Um, I was trying to find some info. I don't know if you can find this out better than I can because you have more, obviously, inventory. Ford was talking about changing the 2.3 to be dual injection, and I know for the Mustang.
That'd be
I
great.
don't. Yeah, I don't know if they did it for if they ended up doing it for the Mustang, but it does not appear that they've done it for the Ranger or the Bronco. Just FYI.
That's right. And I would like the 2.3 liter to come with dual injection so that, the potential carbon buildup from, even though it's gotten better and whatnot, we haven't seen
Right.
problems the way we did early on. But I'd love to have the dual injection to just not have to worry about the potential of carbon buildup and having to do a walnut blasting, which is a bit of a pretty expensive.
Sure.
It's about the price of two, you know, European vehicle oil changes. But still, in my area, if you have a
Yeah.
European vehicle like a Porsche or an Audi or a Mercedes, BMW, you're generally looking at an oil change of $600 to $800. So the walnut blasting doesn't seem, from that perspective,
Be
that
that
much
much.
money. But I just don't want to have to go there. Uh, the
Yeah.
the the 2.7 liter for me is just a perfect mix between a ton of power and reliability, and not ever having to think that maybe I should tune this. It's just perfect right out of the box. It's perfection.
Yeah, I didn't have and don't have a reason to mess with the engine on it because it's everything that I kind of need. I don't want to tune it. I don't want to start changing that stuff because you don't just change one thing, you start changing a lot of different things. The one thing I would say is if you're going to keep a Bronco, any vehicle, but let's talk Bronco right now. If you're going to keep a Bronco long term, you really, really, really need to invest in um, good engine oil and frequency, changing the oil more frequent.
Over
But
here.
that's another video, another day, and that's coming out. You'll see this week. I learned some stuff that made my head like hurt for days this week. So the Bronco is. What do you think, Johnny, about when Ford first launched it? You had the incredible energy behind the launch. Then you had a lot of us here on YouTube taking the information and running with it, doing videos on it, and creating a lot of excitement. A lot of people in the comments right now have been here since day one with the Bronco. Do you think Ford needs to do something to bring more attention to the Bronco again, or do you think the attention's still there? We're just dealing with too many other things, like inflation.
Yeah, I think that obviously there's going to be all sorts of attention on the Bronco again if they announce something such as a Bronco pickup truck. or when they announce, I think when they announce, for example, when the 2.3 liter gets its plug-in variant in the Bronco, that's something that
Yeah.
they should really push. You know, make it known, make some commercials, do some marketing behind it. I think it will be needed. Otherwise, people, it's just not really going to get noticed. And you know, we've seen it with the Ford Escape plug-in. At first, we're like, there should be like people banging down the doors for this. It's like a great value. It's an incredible machine, but I don't think there was enough publicity out there for it. Now that they've put more publicity behind it, now we're getting people coming in and be like, "Oh, I just heard about this whole like the Escape being plug-in." Same thing for like the Lincoln Corsair. Not a ton of people know about the Lincoln Corsair being an all-wheel drive plug-in. So I think, you know, the Broncos definitely going to need to push when they come out with, because people form opinions, and once their opinions are formed, it's very hard to change their minds. So I think there needs to be a big marketing push once there's supply out there about Bronco pricing, because I think a lot of people have it in their, you know, mind that, oh well, if you want a Bronco you have to spend so much more money than MSRP, so never mind, I'm not even going to go look at it. And I actually had someone that bought a brand new Jeep because they didn't even check the Ford dealer, even though like I see them at the gym like once a week. You know, we chat here and there. But when she finally saw my green Bronco come in and she had had her Jeep for 2 months, she's like, "Oh my goodness, I made a huge mistake. Your Bronco looks so much better. That's absolutely what I wanted. I just didn't want to pay over MSRP for it." And I was
Mm.
like, "What?" I was like, I I would have made sure that you would have gotten a good deal. Like, so I think in order to fight some of the you know, sour lemonade, they need to add a little sugar
Yep.
to the lemonade. Don't actually need to do that in real life, but I think for marketing wise, they need to throw in a little bit of sugar and remind people that the Bronco is a great vehicle and that it can come out at a reasonable price. So you know, when they bring the lower interest rates, I think they should push the marketing on it. And it'd be great if they could figure out, every manufacturer has trouble with this, but to get dealers really set on pricing,
Right. You know,
standardized pricing.
yeah. Well, that would help. Is the only thing is that I don't like things that feel like they have to charge a certain amount, but maybe, and I guess this is the part of having a free market, is they have the option of just putting whatever on it if you need it. I didn't like that at all. That's why I liked my dealer, because everything I got was MSRP. Which, think about it, over the last 10 years, MSRP is a high price, right? But over the
Yeah.
last 3 years, if you paid MSRP, you were getting a deal.
Yeah.
You said Ford Escape, the Ford Escape. I was watching a Ford Authority. Don't know if you saw this. Ford Escape sales jumped 73% during Q1 2024.
Yeah.
I haven't dove
Marketing
into
help.
the numbers to see how it breaks down or whatever, but yeah, you were mentioning that. So I think when the Bronco has that, very good point. It's a hybrid. They change something. They bring out the truck if they ever do. I think, um, I really believe, and here's what I think, Johnny. Deep down, I think if I were in charge at Ford and and the offer to build a Bronco truck was on the table, and I knew the Ranger Raptor was coming out, I would say wait at least 6 months after the sales started. Wait 6 months to see how the Ranger sales go and the Ranger Raptor sales, because if you think about a Bronco in a pickup truck, that would be built more like a Ranger Raptor, right? If you ask me if I were doing it, I would wait to see if the market is there for the Ranger Raptor, and I start selling. It's tremendously well, and they're over their market um, estimates.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't perform that well, then I would bring out the Bronco Raptor to fill that market.
Now, All Terrain Nation, thank you very much for the donation. And I want to plug over on Instagram. You pointed out one Ranger Raptor in one area that's, I believe it was $30,000 over MSRP. And according to, and that's for a Ranger Raptor, according to Ford Authority, the highest that they had found was 20,000 over MSRP. And like, that's wild, because here there's actually, I believe, one or two Ranger Raptors in my region that it's only like an hour or two away. I could pick up a black Ranger Raptor right now. Well, not now because it's Sunday night and they're
Yeah.
closed. But I mean, come Monday morning,
Yeah.
I could just call them up and say like, hey, can you ship this to my dealer? And at worst, they'd say no, and I'd have to go buy it from
Right.
that dealer direct. But there's no markup on it.
Well, there's a
So
there's a dealership that's kind of, big on social media. They do a lot of stuff. They were saying they had two on the lot, and they were said, "Come on down, and we'll make you a deal," type thing. So I don't know why someone would pay 30 over when I just have no idea why.
remember at one point Ford Lightnings were selling for 510. Some dealers were trying to get, some people were buying them and then asking 50K over because
Right.
they had, one of the first ones that arrived in the country. So
Right.
they figured they'd ask 50 over. And that's wild. So I really like your point. Like, before rushing into getting a Ranger Raptor, especially if you're doing it because you're thinking, oh, well, great resale in 6 or 12 months. If that's the case, hold off.
Right.
But if you want a Ranger Raptor because you want a ton of power, a ton of capability, and just an amazing looking machine, yeah, go ahead, buy one, but make sure you buy at MSRP. And if you're ordering, like I said earlier in the show, no matter what you order from Ford, make sure your dealer, if your order is going in, it's a confirmed order verification process, that they take your driver's license, that you sign and they sign the build sheet, keep your copy, and that you get a copy of a purchase offer
Right.
or lease offer and get
Absolutely.
them to sign it. Keep your copy so that when it comes in, you don't have complications. But yeah, that's definitely the way I would go, the route I would go. So Ed brought up a really good point in his area. Broncos have not piled up on lots, so it could be a while before they get a much lower interest rate. Like we saw a 6% cut in interest rate from last month to this month. So for my region, it's definitely a really
Well,
excellent time,
it,
because if all these happen to sell within a month or two, and then we have no Broncos on the lot or very few, that interest rate could go back up. Supply and demand does dictate price.
right. And also the used market is the telltale for what's coming in the new car market, right? So if the used market, if there's low inventory there, that just tells you there's more people being driven from new to used. But then when interest rates drop, the natural thinking is that the new car market is going to do well. The business is going to pick up. They're going to start selling more units and dry up that inventory pretty quickly. And but now that we're back to production being more of a normal number, so they're able to feed the system
Yeah,
more than before, when we would have a say an uptick in sales, it would immediately dry up the supply chain because we were limited on how many they could build, right? I mean,
absolutely.
they sold 36,000 escapes last, or they built 36,000, I think it was last month. That's a lot of cars. That's for one model of car,
Yeah,
one manufacturer. Start adding up all of Ford's stuff out there. Yeah, there's a lot. Look, there's a lot of heavy duty trucks at a holding lot here in our area. I was going to go by and get a video of it. I've never seen so many Oxford white Ford vans, Ford trucks, and typically bigger trucks sitting at this one holding lot. And I thought it was odd they were here. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on with that. So, I'm sure video to follow, like and subscribe. But I think we're in a position to where if things can change, not just interest rate, but the comfort level of the consumer, right? Consumer sentiment, I think it's the CPI number. When you start changing someone's attitude and they think they have a compelling future, the future's brighter. Interest rates drop a little bit, they're more inclined to buy that new vehicle, and the vehicle that's fun. The Bronco's fun. You need a car, but you might not need a Bronco, right? So you're going to go with a Maverick. You're going to go maybe with a base Ranger. You need a small truck.
yeah. With the current economy, I've seen people and businesses that would normally buy F-150s buy Ford Mavericks
Yeah,
because
sure,
their reasoning is we don't know what's to come, or the reasoning is business has slowed down. Remember, at one point, construction
sure.
companies were booked 1 or even 2 years out, and now some construction companies are booked, a few weeks out, or they're booked 2 months out, but then after that, they have, next to nothing or nothing at all.
Yeah.
Sometimes, they're only three quarters booked for the next 3 months. So huge difference in supply, just the entire economy's supply. Spending seems to be coming down. So we'll see what that does because yeah, people always have a choice to get, like, well, look at us. We're looking at the whole idea of, do we get, could we have a Ranger Raptor in the yard plus our wild track? And we're already thinking, it'd be smarter, wiser to have, a plug-in escape. And then we're like, well, can we go in halfway and get
Right.
a Bronco and a Big Bend? Now he would be very happy with the Big Bend, but we're still going to be spending tens of thousands more than the
Right.
plug-in escape and fuel. So I think a lot of people are having these discussions. So I think Broncos, if they're not piled up in your area, maybe you've got an area that's really, more money or more, my area has a lot of doctors and a lot of lawyers
Right.
and a lot of university professors. But university professors often walk or take the bus. They're their own special batch, or they've got like a 12-year-old Toyota Camry because
Yeah.
they're living their best life doing boring stuff.
Right. Right.
They're not doing anything fun like driving
Less
around top
adventurous.
down or off-roading, nothing dangerous at all. And then your lawyers and your doctors are, and we've seen it a lot. Our used lot has seen several Porsche Macans come through, Porsche Macans. We've seen a lot of BMWs, Audis, Mercedes. We're taking a lot of luxury vehicles from doctors and high paid professionals because they're getting, a Mustang Mach-E because it just financially makes sense, makes dollars and cents. So I
Yeah.
think for the show this evening, unless you want to add in, throw in a point before we wrap up, I think that's pretty much a show for tonight. It's just pretty much a wrap. I really appreciate it. I saw that Ed gave a lot of information
Yeah.
this evening. M. Peugeot, Ridgeview, 4 high, 4 low. Deal mine for a 2024. Great information putting in the chat. So really appreciate all the information added and the discussion, the quality community interactions going on in the chat. In this format, it's great. I can actually get to see the messages without them disappearing. I'm not sure when you're online if that happens to you, but normally when I've got my camera up and I'm alone, the chat will only show for 10,
Yeah.
less than
Yep.
10 seconds. So it's really hard to catch.
Well, they go away, and I've never done the live directly to YouTube like this, so it was a little bit of technology. So I'm sorry about the communication earlier with the Wi-Fi, and I didn't think of switching over to cell. I'm normally hardwired.
Yeah.
At one point in time, we were doing it Wi-Fi, and I was famous for having the glitches, but uh, anyway, so sorry about the first part. If there's any
No
part of the
worries.
video you want to redo sometime, absolutely. But look, Johnny, you're a wealth of knowledge. You give us. I watch your videos and I learn so much because you're not just skimming the surface. You are diving deep, and some of your videos are a little bit longer because you're covering all of that. So I definitely appreciate you, and I learn a lot, my friend. So keep it up.
Well, I really appreciate that, and it's funny because I often feel a little like, oh, I didn't get to that level that Dwayne gets to when he talks about, you like, for example, your catch can videos, like you really
Yeah.
dive into more the engineer, we could say the engineering side of things, the more technical side of things. So I think I really hope everyone, we love your channel, and we really
Yeah.
hope and
Thank
think
you.
everyone should go over, check out Dwayne's channel. He's a great family man, taking care of his family while his family also takes care. Our families, we take care of each other, but you're a family man, and I hope everyone here will be supporting you. And I look forward to your upcoming videos, my friend.
And Peugeot, thank you for that comment, and Ed and everyone else. You have a great community here, by the way. I'm watching all the comments go through, and that comes from
Good luck.
years of hard work. So you have a lot of great people here. So awesome comments. Where I would finish it up with is I have a video dropping this week that is going to make heads explode when it comes to the oil change drama. Somebody's going to think, "Oh no, didn't we solve this?" No, we haven't even begun the conversation. So, Johnny,
Wow.
you're going to love this one. This one made my head just hurt. It
I'll be
was fun.
watching it twice, and I might be modifying. I think I might be, from the sounds of it, might be doing some modifications or some changes in
Yeah,
my
no,
habits
no,
when it comes to the
and
Bronco.
no, and that's the fun thing. Impuzo is probably going to like it too, based on an earlier comment he had. But look, we really, really need to dive deep on some of this value add stuff to try to help people with their investment. Because look, let's face it, everything's expensive, right? So let's take care of
Yeah.
what you have, and modify it. But Johnny, thank you. I appreciate the offer, and thanks for inviting me on the show. I definitely, I know I reached out and said, hey, we're returning to YouTube finally. And I've taken some much needed time off, and we're
Good.
back, and we've got a lot of good stuff. So thank you.
Well, thank you, my friend. Blessed to have you on the channel, Anthony Sparacio. Sorry, I'm mispronouncing that, but thank you for sharing some kindness. Let's, as we move forward in our week, folks, let's try to remember to be the best, kindest versions of ourselves, because when we're kind, even if we're kind to people that are rude, that's a reflection on them, and our kindness is a reflection on ourselves. So let's try to be the best versions of ourselves, take the care of our families, and of course, I do wish everyone more cars and more power, and I hope you get to put the pedal to the metal, just maybe not with the baby in the back. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for watching the show. Really appreciate everyone in the comment section. Have a great week, everyone. Take care.
Bye.